Temple Isaiah is the class act. I mean, this sets the standard for what Jewish life in this community should be.
It's absolutely amazing to think that we're here for 50 years.
It's the 50th anniversary, like, hello, that's pretty cool.
Temple Isaiah was founded in the earliest years of Columbia's existence, and Columbia was a brand new idea.
In those days, Columbia was an adventure. Columbia was new. Most of the people were not from this region.
A lot of people, at least back in those days, that were in Columbia were transplants from someplace else.
The founding generation of Temple Isaiah were really seeking to fill the void of a Reform synagogue in Howard County.
In the beginning, there were small groups that were meeting, and then they moved into Wild Lake.
There were no congregations. Our group started in our living room and put a blurb in the Wild Lake newsletter. We were amazed at the number of people that responded. So it was decided at that meeting that it would be Reform.
We thought that a Reform congregation would be open to many different kinds of Jews, and we could serve most of the population. And I think we were probably right.
The services when we first came were conducted by lay people. It was very, very intimate.
What was interesting and sort of unique about the founding is that it was really all very young people coming together to found the congregation.
In those days, for example, when you had Yisker, there were maybe 10 people who attended, whereas the final service, the room was filled, completely filled.
The original people who joined this temple, religion came first. Social action came first.
You know, we did progressive dinners and we did parties together. It was nice to have that like community.
And so people came and formed really tight connections with each other. Our friends in the congregation sort of became like extended family to us.
In the early days, if somebody didn't show up on Friday night, you called. Because were they okay? Because it was so important to have community.
We had a ruach, we had a spirit. We loved participation and we loved our religion.
They had Rabbi Dick Sternberger, who helped young start-up congregations.
And he eventually got us Rabbi Fuchs as our first semi-full-time and then full-time rabbi.
My vision from the get-go was that we wouldn't be just another congregation, that our services would have integrity, that our students who studied for bar and bat mitzvah would continue through confirmation, and not just continue, but absorb a great deal of meaningful content along the way.
Rabbi Fuchs brought a tremendous amount to the congregation. We grew from 59 to several hundred.
And at the end of the first year, the Wild Lake Center was crowded and they were building the new Interfaith Center in Oakland Mills. And that's eventually where we moved.
Going to services in a place where there was not just a chapel, but there was also a conservative group who met, helped to really support Temple Isaiah's mission to be loving and accepting.
The temple really gave anyone who wanted it an opportunity to be involved in whatever way they wanted.
One of the great things that happens here during the high holidays is the Congregants Hour. It opens up a whole world. You learn things through these people that come up and talk about that. And all these programs develop because so many wonderful people belong.
Under the guidance of Rabbi Fuchs and then of Rabbi Panoff, this congregation has grown and matured over these 50 years.
During the search process, before we began to look at rabbis, one of the questions we had was, what's the difference between Temple Isaiah and Rabbi Fuchs? Because he taught us how to be a temple, how to be a congregation. So Rabbi Panoff came as a result of the search process. Rabbi Panoff taught us who we were.
Rabbi Panoff's leadership gave the temple board the excitement and energy to move the congregation in a new direction.
Under Mark's leadership, we created our very own Temple Isaiah Religious School based upon Reform Judaism traditions and practices. This school is now known as Kulanu.
As Columbia was growing, so was the membership of our synagogue.
Eventually, we needed to grow. We didn't have sufficient room for Jewish education. So the board and the members of the temple decided to move to a new location, this location here in Fulton.
This was an effort that was not made for the families who were present in the temple membership, but for the future generations, for families who we wouldn't know, for the children who would be celebrating bar mitzvahs, possibly weddings, baby namings.
So we worked very hard to get this building. There was so much work done ahead of time to decide how we wanted things, what we wanted.
But thank God for Denny Rapport and those people that watched the construction and just pounded away at it every day. Just to see how beautiful, how simple, how non-ostentatious it is. It's absolutely restful, peaceful.
It is an extraordinary and beautiful and well thought out space. The design choice was to make a room that was wider than it was deep, in the sense that wherever you are in this sanctuary, you cannot feel very far from anyone else in this sanctuary. You cannot feel very far from the Ark, from the Bima, from the Torah. It is a place that really draws you in.
I mean, I don't think people realize, like, the stained glass in the library was manufactured by a congregant. The Ner Tamid was made by a congregant. All the interior decorating was arranged by a congregant.
Here, it was much more our space. So our teachers were able to do more. The kids were able to learn more. We evolved even more so than most congregations do once we moved into this building.
This commitment, therefore, was a selfless commitment, so that these people were in it, not for themselves, but for the new members who are there with you now.
When we moved into our building in 2004, we opened the Temple Isaiah Preschool. My dear friend, Renee Panoff of blessed memory, served as our first director. Renee did an outstanding job of creating a school filled with joy and the love of Judaism.
Part of what occurred over the mid-years was to establish a solid professional staff. When it came time to find a family educator, we knew Rachel Petroff Kessler was a perfect fit. Music has always played a strong role in our congregation. It was love at first listen when the search committee heard Becca Droller. Her warmth and genuine nature added to the beauty of her singing and our services. We were blessed in our mid-years to have such a solid professional staff.
Especially since Rabbi Axler has arrived. The nature of the congregation has changed so much so as far as openness, welcoming new families, old families returning.
Rabbi Axler has done an enormous job in filling our holes.
The clear reason that we realized that Rabbi Axler was our rabbi and the rabbi for the future was his modern view of synagogue life and his ability to see what congregants need.
Really, what drew me to this congregation was the sense that it was a warm community that really took being a part of a synagogue and a part of a broader Jewish community very seriously. It also had to do with the founding of the temple and the values that had animated it from its founding 50 years ago.
We've grown and expanded the amount of programming, both with the quality and the number of staff that we have, as well as the sort of growth of the congregation. We've needed to appeal to different constituencies in the congregation, all the way from our youngest to our most senior or experienced members.
We are growing and changing, but we're maintaining who we are. We're maintaining our identity. We're keeping ourselves as Temple Isaiah from 50 years ago into the next 50.
Each stage of the growth, it seemed like each 10 new members, somebody would say, oh, it's not the same, it's losing its touch and this and that, and change was inevitable.
One of the things I think makes Temple Isaiah who we are is that we've never been afraid of confronting change and looking at what is a Reformed Judaism that speaks to the people today, what will speak for us tomorrow.
But I think that the fundamental character of the congregation did not change, and honestly, from what we observe, has not changed to this day. A warm, wonderful community that cares about its Judaism and cares about each other.
For me, it always comes back to the word community, and I think we establish such a tight and incredibly diverse community in this congregation.
What's a beautiful thing is that we have families that are raising their children in this community who one or more of the parents were originally raised in Temple Isaiah.
Who thought that our children would move back to Howard County? Nobody thought that that would happen. It's one of the wonderful developments that has occurred.
We want the future to be there for our children and our grandchildren. We've seemed to sort of meld together when you see the 3 and 4 generations now that are leading the temple.
I can't get over the fact that after 50 years, it is still one of the few religious congregations in Columbia, and indeed any place in the country, that's growing. And that is just such a marvelous tribute to the rabbi and to the culture of Temple Isaiah.
The fact that we survived and grew is a remarkable thing, but it's obviously due not only to the rabbinic leadership, but to the lay leadership.
It's such a team effort because without strong clergy and staff, without a strong lay leader board, without a strong volunteer congregation, we couldn't have gotten here without all those parts being true.
And because the congregation is growing and growing and growing by leaps and bounds, it's really been amazing. Our congregation has gotten to be the, as far as I'm concerned, the premier congregation in Howard County.
It both knows what it's doing, it knows how to nurture people, it knows how to lead people to Reform Judaism, and this is frankly the most important organization I've ever been involved in.
So Temple Isaiah's future will depend on it remaining as it is, which is a place that isn't afraid to embrace newness, a place that isn't afraid to embrace change, and a place that isn't afraid to vision what can be.
And it is so exciting to see Temple Isaiah at this moment both be in a space of really celebrating everything that's come before and also know that we are just at the beginning of a really beautiful journey still to come.
There's a lot of potential, a lot of growth, and a lot of wonderful things in store for the future.
So the 50th anniversary gives Temple Isaiah the opportunity to engage, the community as a whole.
A 50th anniversary, a 50th birthday, a 50th anything is a real milestone, and it's a simcha. And we got together a group of maybe 30 people. We set up a year to do many, many activities that we hoped would attract and intrigue all different phases of our congregation.
Today is Isaiah Fest, which is kind of the kickoff event.
If you look out in the parking lot right now, there are tons of cars and there are people all excited. The kids are excited. What I, as a parent, would like most is that my kids want to come here.
Thank you for coming today to join together to celebrate the women of Temple Isaiah. Tonight, as we remember our beginnings, we're pleased to welcome back our first full-time rabbi, Rabbi Stephen Fuchs.
Who knew what was going to happen? I mean, I was just worried about the weather. I wasn't worried about a pandemic. Fortunately, after changing the dates 3 times, we are back to doing what we started out doing. So now we're 50 plus 2.
So tonight is the celebration of Temple Isaiah's middle years.
Our voices rise in song together.
I want to thank the Sisterhood for putting this on.
It is really just wonderful to have a full sanctuary.
We get wonderful turnouts. We get great reactions from people. And I think anybody who comes feels welcome, feels happy, feels engaged. And I'm hoping that down the pathways, when people ask them what congregation they belong to, they say, I belong to Temple Isaiah, and I'm thrilled that I do.
I think that's a lovely legacy. It's a legacy that we're affording the generations to come forward.